This is one of those stories that serves as a truly chilling and tragic warning. We're going to break down the case of Kate Beagley, a vibrant life that was cut way too short by a calculated and brutal betrayal, to really understand the red flags that were missed and, the lessons that her story leaves behind.
Wow. I mean, that one sentence just sums up the entire tragedy, doesn't it? It's such a powerful way to frame a story about misplaced trust, and it really makes you ask, how on earth did it get to this point?
So let's go back to the beginning. How did all of this start? Well, it begins, like so many stories do, on what seemed like just a totally ordinary night out. Picture a crowded nightclub, right in the heart of London, where a fateful first meeting is about to happen.
Okay, let's get specific, because the details here really matter. The date is May 20th, 2007. The place? The CC Club in Piccadilly. For Kate, it was just a fun night out. Music, dancing, the usual. But for her future killer, it was something else entirely.
All right, so let's look at the two people at the center of all this, because they could not have been more different. It's a really stark contrast. You've got Kate Beagley, 32 years old, a successful sales manager, adventurous, just full of life. And then you have Carl Taylor, a 27-year-old fitness instructor who, as the court would later put it, was a predator hiding in plain sight. And this right here, it just gets to the heart of the disconnect between his charming appearance and his dark reality. And it's so important to remember, this wasn't just someone's opinion. This was the official court assessment of him. Arrogant, manipulative, and highly dangerous. Those words, they paint a terrifyingly clear picture. Okay, and this is where the story gets really, truly chilling. Because from the very first moment they met, their intentions were on two completely different planets. Kate was open, maybe to a new connection. But Carl? Carl had a single, cold motive from the very start. He wanted her car.
So after that first meeting, they eventually set up a date. And as we're about to see, it would be their first and also their very last. This is the date on the hill.
So fast forward nearly a whole year. It's now March 7th, 2008, and the date is finally happening. Kate picks him up in her VW Golf. Yep, the very same car he was after. But what's really telling is that witnesses said Kate seemed kind of distant, almost disinterested. You have to wonder, maybe her intuition was already sending her some serious warning signals. And this is the point that changes everything. Because this was never, ever just a date. As Judge Giles Forrester said, Carl Taylor didn't just show up for a nice evening. He showed up armed and with a clear, premeditated plan to kill for profit.
This cold premeditation is about to lead to an act of just shocking violence, and it's going to happen in a place that should have been peaceful, beautiful, and totally safe.
The setting itself is it's such a haunting contrast to what actually happened. Richmond Hill is this beautiful, scenic spot overlooking the River Thames. They walk down a quiet path to a wooden bench. I mean, it sounds like the perfect location for a date. But instead, it became the scene of a horrific crime.
And then, the motive was laid bare. According to Carl's own police statement, these are the words he spoke. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a fight that got out of hand. It was about an object. The sheer coldness of reducing a human life to the value of a car is just staggering. 31. Just let that sink in for a second. 31. That is the number of times Carl Taylor stabbed Kate Beagley. The absolute brutality of the attack is captured in that single, horrifying number.
In a desperate and frankly just absurd attempt to cover his tracks, Carl claimed that Kate had taken her own life. But the forensic truth was irrefutable. I mean, you have his claim and then you have reality. It's a lie that completely defies all logic.
What Carl did next just shows a complete and utter lack of humanity. His actions were not those of someone in a panic, but of a cold, methodical killer.
I mean, just look at the sequence here. He strips her, tries to wash away evidence with mineral water of all things, and puts her body in the trunk of her own car. He then drives to a secluded woodland, dumps her body, and then just casually keeps the car and sells her phone. Each step is just another calculated act to erase his crime and profit from her death.
But despite all his efforts to conceal the truth, the investigation started closing in, and the fight for justice for Kate began.
So after Kate's father filed a missing persons report, a whole week went by before her body was discovered. But once it was, the police found what they called forensic gold at the scene. Just overwhelming evidence that all pointed directly back to Carl Taylor, which led to his swift arrest.
The trial at the Old Bailey really became a battle between two completely opposing stories. On one side, you had the prosecution methodically laying out all the evidence for a clear case of murder for gain. And on the other, the defense, incredibly, stuck with that unbelievable story of suicide.
Well, the jury saw straight through the lies. After all the evidence, it took them only 2 hours to reach their verdict. Guilty. The sentence was life in prison, with a minimum term of 30 years before he's even eligible for parole.
So, the trial was over and justice was served, but this story leaves behind a painful and really important legacy, a lasting mourning that we absolutely need to unpack.
During the sentencing, Judge Forrester did not hold back, speaking directly to Carl Taylor's character. He highlighted how Taylor manipulated Kate's natural trust and openness. As the judge pointed out, he saw her kindness not as a gift, but as a weakness to be exploited.
So what are the key takeaways here? This is probably the most important part of this whole story. The case offers some really stark, practical warnings. First, trust your intuition. Never, ever ignore those red flags or feelings of unease. Second, be cautious with strangers, no matter how charming they seem. And finally, that tragic detail of the car, it's a painful reminder about being physically vulnerable in isolated situations.
And finally, we just have to end by remembering the true human cost. As you can see in the words of Kate's father, Alan Beagley, this wasn't just a headline. This was the loss of a beloved daughter, a loss that created a void that can never be filled. It's a devastating reminder that the impact of a senseless act of violence like this, it ripples outward, forever changing the lives of those left behind.